Told you I'd come. Here. Come here. Sorry it took so long. Jeez. You don't think a guy works at all? Jeez. Hello, everybody. It is John O'Keefe jamming to some 80s. It's for some of my friends out there. Just want to say, good day, good day. I'm sorry that it took me so long to get here. Busy first day back at school yesterday. Great to be back with you today. Got my awesome 5th grade shirt on. Yeah, representing. We are here for Mountain Meets the Moon. Are you having a good day? I am having a great day. Got my first day back with the Darlings today. Hello, Fave Boco team. It is good to be back with you. I missed you after 3 weeks. I am going to turn my music down. Otherwise, I'm going to be blowing your mind. I hope you are well. I hope you are doing good. I hope on this wondrously beautiful day down here in Georgia that you are also experiencing something as good as that. So let us get into this because today I am hungry for more. I missed you yesterday and it's time. My class, this is kind of my goal today. My class has been working on being focused on figurative language. Figurative language is the idea that words are put together, phrases are put together in order to make sense of things or make images within the reader or the listener's mind or the writer's mind, of course, because what your job is to create those opportunities for your reader to visualize things. So there are the opportunity of a simile, comparing two things using the words like or as. For instance, my dad was like a bear when he woke up this morning. Then there's the metaphor that is similar. It's a comparison, but at the same time, it also doesn't use the like or as. So it actually kind of turns somebody into something else. So listen to the difference here. Not my father was like a bear when he woke up, because that kind of talks about how he might be similar to a bear, maybe grumpy, maybe frustrated. But listen to this. My dad was a bear when he came home from work. Did your brain change that picture? Like all of a sudden you have this this bear walking into your home. And so that's the difference between, say, a simile and a metaphor. Simile is like something, so it helps us understand something that we might need understanding of using a comparison as it is similar to something. The sun was like a light bulb, or a metaphor where you change something into something, which would be kind of like my father was a bear. Now, neither one of those things are totally true, but the idea is it gives your learner an idea of what's happening, or your reader of what's happening. The other one that we talked a lot about today was personification. Personification is the idea, you hear the word person at the beginning of that, person, fiction, so kind of person in fiction. So it's the idea of giving something that is not a person or not human, human characteristics, like the marker danced along the page, right? Can't dance, but at the same time, what does it mean to dance along the page? It means that it's doing some really cool movements. Or the cube jumped out of my hand. Didn't quite jump out of my hand. I actually had to do something. It can't jump on its own, right? It's just a human characteristic. So that's kind of where we're at in regards to it. My stomach growled at me to feed it. Now, my stomach isn't really growling at me and telling me to do that like that. That's kind of giving it a human characteristic. So while I read today, I'm going to kind of be keeping an eye on the idea of similes, listening for opportunities when that shows up, or metaphor. That's kind of an M, so turning one thing into another, and the idea of personification. I mean, you could do this if you want, kind of looking like a P, if you wanted turning something that isn't human into having human characteristics. So as we read, last time we were together, you remember that we had a young lady who brought a friend to the gates of a city. looking for the king, because that's what they were told they needed to do. The problem was that there were a lot of people in the kingdom, and she happens to run into this guy or boy who is with a buffalo, right? A buffalo boy is the way that we were hearing, and he lived in a very small shack, had a very interesting magical friend who would come and visit every once in a while, remember? And happened to meet this person while they were swimming, and then the sisters ran off and they became very good friends, but they can only meet once a month on the full moon. She is searching very diligently for something in the city, just told that this is where they needed to go in order to get to the man of the moon and the book of fortunes. And so we are deeply embedded in Minli's adventure. Remember also that Ma and Ba are breathing very difficultly into the distrust of just letting their daughter be old enough. So welcome. Let us get to reading. We are on chapter 19, as always, giving you that picture. We have somebody who is cuddling up probably with the buffalo or the oxen. So let's keep our eyeballs out for some of that. Minli started awake as she heard the scraping of the door against the dirt. Well, that's right. Last time we were together, she was falling asleep, right? They were all going to sleep. The moonlight streamed in from the window, lighting the bare hut. The boy had given her his pile of grass to sleep on and joined the buffalo, using some of its grass as a pillow. But as the buffalo snored loudly, Minli could see the bowl-shaped hollow in the hay was empty. I wonder where he went, Minli said, and she found herself thinking of Ma and Ba and Dragon, all waiting for her. Suddenly, the room seemed to ache with loneliness. Hold on. Can a room ache with loneliness? No, that's a personification. That's what we're talking about. A room can't ache like a human can, but what does it mean that the room ached with loneliness? Well, she was thinking about her Ma and Ba and the dragon, all who were waiting, and so she felt lonely, right? She felt like that loneliness kind of covered and filled the room. So that's how personification can be really helpful to a writer. The boy must be meeting his friend outside, Minli realized, and unable to control her curiosity, she crept to the window to peek. Yes, the friend was there. Minli was startled when she saw her. Even with the buffalo boy blocking most of her view, Minli could see his friend was beautiful, even more beautiful than he had ever described. She seemed to glow like a pearl in the moonlight, and her deep blue silk dress seemed to be the color of the sky. Like a pearl in the moonlight, seemed to be the color of the sky. You're comparing two things. That's a simile. The bag she held in her graceful hand seemed to be made out of the same silk, but the silver thread embroidered on it made it look as if it were made from a piece of the star-scattered sky. Everything about her seemed finer and more delicate than the average person. There was definitely something unusual about the buffalo boy's friend. Minli watched her laugh and then listened intently as the buffalo boy spoke. He gestured to the house, and Minli ducked down just out of sight as the friend glanced toward her. He must be asking her about how I can see the king, Minli thought. As soon as she dared, Minli peeked again out the window. The buffalo boy's friend had her eyes closed toward the sky, as if listening to the wind. Then she looked at the buffalo boy and spoke. He nodded, and the girl smiled at what Minli imagined was the buffalo boy's enthusiastic thanks. Hey, Matt boy, good to see you. I love the word E. What's up with that? I think is what you're talking about. Minli sat down on the wooden stool. She knows a lot of things, the buffalo boy had said about his friend. After seeing her, Minli was ready to believe it. But who is she? Minli asked aloud. And just then the buffalo boy came back inside. Oh, you're awake, he said when he saw Minli. As much as he tried, he couldn't hide the leftover smiles and laughter from his visit with her. His eyes sparkled as he sprawled himself out on the bed of grass. I talked to my friend. She said that the king might be at the market of green abundance tomorrow morning, but you are going to have to find him yourself. Really? Minli said. How does she know? The boy shrugged. You didn't ask? Minli asked. Don't you think it's a little mysterious that you only see her once in a while and you never visit her? She only visits you? And that she knows things like where the king might be tomorrow. Who is she really? She's my friend, the boy said simply. That's who she is, and that is enough for me. As Minli looked at the buffalo boy, aglow with happiness against his poor surroundings, she saw it was enough for him, more than enough, as the smile that kept curling up on his face told her. Minli's question fell from her as she realized there was nothing else to say. So, this friend, star friend, night friend, moon friend, comes to tell, might be at the market of green abundance today. Let's find out. Chapter 20. We have the bowl of soup. We have chopsticks. Something's on the inside. There seems to be rice. So let's take a look and see what's going on with this. Ma and Ba walked quietly through the forest. Their steps, Ma and Ba. So now we're with Ma and Ba. Ma and Ba walked quietly through the forest, and the steps made a rhythm to the music of forest noises. Ba's arm ached from carrying the goldfish bowl, but he said nothing. I can carry the goldfish if you're tired, Ma said. Ba opened his mouth to protest when he heard, let her, old man. It is her way of saying she's not angry anymore. That's the fish. Ba closed his mouth and looked at the fishbowl, and then at Ma. She stood, waiting, clearly ignorant of the fish's words. Clearly ignorant of the fish's words. So, Ba's hearing the fish, but he's wondering if she can hear it. But she is clearly ignorant of the fish's words, so ignorant must mean that she doesn't know. He handed the bowl to Ma. If it gets heavy, I can take it back, he said. We can take turns, Ma said, nodding. Ma was carrying the fishbowl when the night fell, and they came back home to the village. The neighbors saw their return and all crowded around as if they were selling good luck. Did you find Minli? They asked. Where is she? Where did you get the goldfish? Both Ma and Ba shook their heads over and over again. No, they said. We didn't find her. We don't know where she is. The goldfish is from the goldfish peddler. We followed his footprints thinking that they were Minli's. And we decided, Ba finally said, to come back and wait. After she finds Never-Ending Mountain, Minli will come home. Wait for her? One of the neighbors said. How can you let your daughter search for Never-Ending Mountain? You are just as lost as she is. We tried to find her, but now we do not know where to look. So we will wait, Ba said, and then glanced at Ma, who, though her lips tightened at her neighbor's words, did not disagree. We must trust Minli. She will come home. And then Ma and Ba went into their house, leaving the sea of shaking heads behind them. A sea of shaking heads? Is there really an ocean filled with a bunch of people going like this? No, a sea of shaking heads means a huge, vast array of people who are doing the same thing, right? Ma placed the goldfish bowl on the table and quietly began making dinner. A soft breeze seemed to blow in the moonlight, spilling it through the open window and lighting the bowl like a lantern. Ba looked at Ma cautiously. Her face looked weary, but the gentle wind that ripped the bowl's water seemed to smooth the creases of her face. Wait, the gentle wind that rippled the bowl's water seemed to smooth the creases of her face? Wind is smoothing the creases of her face? Kind of sounds like a personification, doesn't it? And when the cloud white rice was finished, Ma took her chopsticks and fed the fish from her bowl. Wait. And when the cloud white rice was finished, Ma took her chopsticks and fed the fish from her bowl. Ma fed the fish? Remember, she yelled at Ba when when he fed the other goldfish, right? How dare you use our food for this fish? Now she is the one feeding the fish. Ma is changing. So I got to go back. Does that mean something a little bit more important now? Check that out. You now have a small bowl with a little rice in the bottom of it. Now you know where that rice went. It's Ma's bowl, and Ma fed the fish. Is Ma changing? I kind of like it. Okay, I'll show you the picture. That's what it is. Chapter 21. Minli and the Buffalo Boy. We're back with Minli and the Buffalo Boy. Minli and the Buffalo Boy pushed through the crowd as the sun burned the tops of their heads. Now, sun burning the tops of their heads, some of you might look at that and go, is that a personification? Now, you got to think about it. The sun, when it's hot, burns the top of your head, right? So it's not really personification, it's what the sun does. So we just know that it's hot at that point. So that's literal. You see that? Literal versus figurative. All right. Minli used the spare harvests of her village. Minli, used to the spare harvests of her village. It's been a long day. Sorry. Sometimes your brain is needing to take a deep breath and get into your reading, right? Okay. Let's start this over. Chapter 21. Minli and the Buffalo Boy pushed through the crowd as the sun burned the tops of their heads. Minli, used to the spare harvests of her village, couldn't help gaping at the tall mounds of food for sale at the market of green abundance. The street and open courtyard were filled with umbrella-covered stands and stalls, flaunting jade-colored cabbages, curled cucumbers, purple eggplants, and tangy oranges. Glossy sugared hawthorn berries, like rubies on a stick, made Minli's mouth water. I don't even know what a sugared hawthorn berry is, but it makes my mouth water too. I guess I should have a snack before I started reading. I don't see the king anywhere, Minli said. Well, maybe he's not here yet, the Buffalo Boy said. I don't know if I'll find him here, Minli said. Now, in the daylight, the Buffalo Boy's friend didn't seem as extraordinary. What would the king be doing at a street market anyway? She said he'd be here, so he will, the Buffalo Boy said, his mouth making a stubborn line. Stubborn line. Hey, get away from that! A vendor yelled as the buffalo attempted to eat frosty green lettuce. The Buffalo Boy quickly pulled him away. Get your buffalo out of here, the vendor shouted, as red-faced as the radishes he was selling. I better take him away, the Buffalo Boy said, pulling the buffalo's head away from the arrays of tempting food. He's hungry. I should take him to pasture. I'll stay here, Minli said. You don't need to look for the king with me. Okay, said the boy. If you need a place to stay tonight, you know where my hut is. If not, maybe I'll see you around. Good luck. Thanks, Minli said. But as he carelessly waved goodbye, she realized that she might not ever see him again. Before he disappeared from sight, she grabbed the last coin out of her bag and ran to him. Wait, Minli said. Here, take this. No, the boy laughed. I don't need that. You keep it. But, Minli started, but he had already turned around. Goodbye, she heard him call, and the buffalo snorted a farewell as well. Minli smiled wryly to herself. Now what? That's in squiggle writing. Now what? Minli thought as she wandered past the stalls, weaving around merchants and customers. How am I supposed to find the king here? Please spare a piece of fruit for an old man, a voice creaked. Minli turned around and saw a wrinkled, poor man begging at a peach stand. He was dirty and bent, and his clothes looked as if they were made from rags used to wash floors. Please, he begged the peach vendor. I am so thirsty. One small peach, your smallest. Go away, old man, the fat vendor said. No money, no peach. Please, the beggar said again weakly. Pity a tired old man. Get away from here, you worthless beggar. the vendor spat out, "or I'll call the guards on you." The vendor's loud voice had attracted attention from passers-by, and a small crowd began to form in front of the peach stand. "It's disgraceful to treat an old man like that," someone murmured. "Just give him a peach." "All of you are so generous with my property," the vendor glared at the crowd. "If you care so much, buy him one." As Minli watched the beggar's hands outstretched and shaking with hunger, she felt a sharp pang inside her. It reminded her of Ba, reaching out with his last chopstick full of rice for her fish. The copper coin that she had offered the buffalo boy was warm in her hand. She could almost feel her heart beating against its round edges. "Here," she said, handing the vendor the coin. Then she picked the largest peach on the stand and handed it to the old man. He bowed to her gratefully and eagerly ate the peach. Forgetting about the inner city and the palace for the moment, Minli watched him. In fact, as if under a spell, the whole crowd stood and watched him swallow the fruit until he held a peach pit in his hand. You remember what a peach pit is? Remember that's the thing in the center, that big hard thing that you don't eat, the one that you want to stick over here and like suck on for a little while. But the reality is that the peach pit is the seed, right? It's the nut of the peach. "Thank you," the beggar said in a much stronger voice. "Thank you," the beggar said in a much stronger voice, and he bowed to the onlooking people. "The peach was so delicious. I wish for all of you to be able to taste it. If you would humor an old man and stay a little while, I will share my good fortune." The old man took a small stick out of his pocket and bent down. Probably a good idea to picture this, right? So maybe close your eyes. The old man took a small stick out of his pocket and bent down. In the dirt next to the black bricks, he dug a small hole and planted his peach pit. He stuck his stick upright in the mound and then asked for water. Minli, now completely fascinated, took out her water jug and handed it to him. As he poured water onto his stick, it trembled. And, was she imagining it? It seemed to begin to grow. And it was growing. The stick grew higher and higher and thicker until it was the width of Minli's arm. When she could no longer see the top of it, pink flowers and branches began to blossom out of it. As the sweet scent of the flowers began to fill the air, Minli realized that the stick had become a peach tree. The crowd of people seemed to realize this too, as they all gaped at it open-mouthed. Even the stingy vendor left his fruit stand to stare at this moment in awe. Like pink snow, the petals fell from the tree and made a soft carpet on the dirt. Green leaves sprouted, and as they cascaded over the branches, pale moon-colored balls like pearls began to develop, almost as if they were small balloons being blown with air. They grew into round fruit, blushing pink and red as they developed. Soon the tree was heavy with them, and the air was full of the enchanting smell of ripe peaches. Oh, have you ever smelled a ripe peach before? Oh, if you haven't, it's not the right time of the year, late summer. Just imagine that smell of just ripe, beautiful fruit coming when there wasn't that at the same time. Children gathered around and stared longingly at the luscious fruit, while the adults gulped with their mouths watering. Finally, the old man reached up, plucked a peach from the tree, and handed it to one of the people in the crowd. "Please," he said, waving his hand, "help yourself." The crowd needed no other urging. Young children climbed the tree and passed down the fruit, while the taller adults simply stretched and grabbed. A boy with a tired horse climbed onto its back to reach an especially red peach that called him. Peaches can't call you. That's personification. But it is going, "Oh, I have to have it. I have to have it." Before long, everyone's mouths were full of soft, sweet peach flesh and groans of delight. Oh, the tree with his eyes even the peach vendor, his stand forgotten, stood under the tree with his eyes closed contentedly and peach juice dribbling out of his mouth. Minli, however, didn't join the feast of peaches. If I hadn't been eating peaches all the way to the city, Minli said to herself, I'd be the first one climbing that tree. But as she was slightly tired of peaches, Minli saw what no one else did. She noticed that every time someone plucked a peach from the tree, a peach from the fruit stand disappeared. The beggar is using the vendor's peaches for his tree, Minli laughed to herself as she glanced at him through the fruit-eating crowd. He was watching with an amused look, and suddenly Minli saw that the beggar wasn't really that old at all. He must be a magician. Maybe he can help me get into the inner city. Minli edged toward him. As she weaved her way to him, the last peach was picked from the tree, and the leaves and branches began to disappear. The tree trunk seemed to shrivel itself, and it grew thinner and shorter. The crowd had finished their peaches, and the ground was littered with peach pits. When Minli finally reached the beggar, the tiny twig of the tree vanished underneath the pile of peach pits, and the beggar was turning to leave. Wait, Minli said, and grabbed his arm. However, as Minli took hold of his sleeve, it pulled back, and a glint of gold shone. Hastily, the beggar pushed back his sleeve, but the quick glance was enough for Minli to see that he wore a gold bracelet in the shape of a dragon. They stared at each other as Minli's quick-thinking mind somersaulted. Only the imperial family is allowed to use the image of a dragon. Dragon has told us that. Everyone knows a golden dragon is always and only worn by kings, said the buffalo boy. The words flashed in her mind, and Minli could scarcely breathe. You're wearing a dragon, Minli gasped. Only the is allowed to wear a golden dragon? You must be. Where's that beggar? A loud, angry shout cut through the chaos. Minli recognized the vendor's voice. He stole my peaches! I'll get him! Quickly, the beggar shook off Minli from his arm and began to run. She stared in shock as she finished her sentence. You must be, Minli whispered to the ragged, disappearing figure. The king. I've got enough time. I have to. Okay. Chapter 22. I'm getting through this one. Seems to me looks like a dragon bracelet, doesn't it? Dragon bracelets. Minli shook herself from her shock. The king! Minli said, I can't lose him now! And in a panic, she began to run after the tattered figure. And it was quite a chase, or it would have been if the beggar had realized he was being followed. He wove in and out around people in bins of rice, each step taking them closer to the unused areas of the city. Behind a pile of discarded baskets, Minli thought she had lost him, but luckily the gray sleeve of his loose jacket waved at her. That's a personification. A sleeve can't wave. Can it? No, not really. It's just his gray sleeve kind of doing this, and it just kind of, hello, I'm still here. Because she can't lose him. You have to know that, right? Like you're being pulled for this moment. Minli thought that she had lost him, but luckily the gray sleeve of his loose jacket waved at her, and she saw him round the walled corner of the inner city. As an abandoned wagon hid her from his view, she saw him push against a portion of the wall. With a slow groan, the wall moved. It's a secret door to the inner city, Minli gasped, and she was able to reach it just before it closed completely. With both hands, she pressed hard against it, and the door pushed open. And like a lid of a jewelry box, the door opened into a landscape of radiant colors. The bamboo, pine, and plum leaves seemed to shine in the sun as if they were carved from emeralds. And the accents of pink and red flowers were like nestled rubies. Steps away from her, Minli could see a patterned pathway made of water-worn pebbles. The central jade green lake mirrored the arching tiled roofs of the pavilions and the rough beauty of large weathered rock sculptures. A winding covered walkway lifted up from the cloudy water like a lotus flower. It could only be the palace gardens. But Minli barely noticed this. Instead, she shook with large eyes, staring at the figure in front of her. The beggar was wiping his face with a delicate white cloth, and Minli saw again that he was not an old man at all. In fact, he was younger than Ba. The gray of his hair was wiped away with the cloth as well, and his beard and head were as glossy black as Minli's hair. His gray rags had been cast off in a pile next to him, and he was clothed in bright yellow silk, the color of the sun. Intricate dragons and multicolored clouds that matched the designs of the gold bracelet he wore were embroidered on his robes and glittered in the light. There was no doubt now that this was the king. Then the king turned around and saw her. At his glance, Minli shrank to the ground in a humble kowtow. "Your Majesty," Minli breathed, and her knees could feel the thumping of her heart in her chest. "God," Minli heard him say, and she peeked up to see the king looking at her with the same amused expression he'd had as a beggar watching the people eat the peaches. He shook his head at her, with his eyes twinkling at her. He could have been the young father of one of her village friends. "And by you," he said, "my little benefactor, I knew you were a clever one. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty." A chorus of voices began coming through the air toward them, and Minli could see a parade of servants in the distance running across the zigzagged bridge. "Well, you mustn't be caught by them," the king said to Minli. "Then they would find out all about my little adventures, and then where would I be?" And he pulled Minli up to her feet and pushed her behind one of the giant gnarled stone carvings, kicking his rags over her. "Quickly, quickly, hide," he said. And don't say a word. I command you not to say a word or to come out until I say so." Minli clutched the rough stone and made herself as small as possible. Hundreds of footsteps were approaching, like falling rain from a thunderstorm. "What's this?" the king demanded. "Has war been declared on the city?" "Your Majesty," an out-of-breath voice said, "we have been searching for you." "Searching for me?" the king said. "I've been here in the garden for hours." We must have missed you," the voice stuttered. "None could find you. The guards had not seen you, and we feared—" "You feared the king of the city of bright moonlight had been spirited away?" The king laughed. "Not this time, Counselor Shu. However, I do feel the wish to commune with the moon tonight." "Your Majesty?" a voice said. "Yes," the king said decisively. "Tonight, I wish to be alone in the garden with the moon. Have a meal brought to me in the clasping the moon pavilion, and do not disturb me until morning." I'm going to say something. These are capitalized letters, and so the clasping the moon pavilion must be a place somewhere in this garden palace, or this palace garden. "And do not disturb me until morning." "Yes, Your Majesty," the voice said, and Minli couldn't help but peek out. She saw rows and rows of finely dressed people kneeling with their heads on the ground in front of the king. Their rich silk clothing shimmered in the fading sunlight. One man, dressed in black, kneeled closer to the king, separated from the rest of the courtiers. Minli guessed he must be Counselor Chu. "Actually, bring me 2 meals, the king said, and glanced toward Minli. She caught his eye and quickly shrank back out of sight. "2 meals, Your Majesty?" Counselor Shu asked, with just the faintest question in his voice. "Yes, 2 meals, the king said. I shall honor the spirit of the moon with her own meal. Since she will be keeping me company, it is only fair." "Yes, Your Majesty," the counselor said. Minli could only guess how puzzled he was, but he was well trained enough to keep it out of his voice. "In an hour's time," the king said, "I shall be at the Clasping the Moon Pavilion. I want the food waiting for me and nothing else. I do not wish to be disturbed by anyone this evening." "Yes, Your Majesty," the voice said again, and Minli could hear the shuffling and swishing of silk as the group rose and took leave of the king. "They've gone," the king said in a low voice. "You can come out now." Minli crawled out from behind the sculpture. "Well, my little friend," he said to her, Now that you know who I am, come walk with me and tell me who you are. She's met the king. She found the secret entrance. Minli is smart enough, adventurous enough, curious enough, wild enough, crazy enough, desperate enough to find the never-ending mountain and change her fortune. Nothing is getting in her way. But I do like that she hasn't forgotten about Dragon. I do like that she hasn't forgotten that she left Ma and Ba as well. But she has something that she must do, right? That's where we leave off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for participating in today's reading of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. We are approximately halfway through this book. I look forward to you coming back. I look forward to you being here again. Thank you for those of you who joined. There's a silent partner out there who I'm not quite sure who it is, but whoever you are, thank you very much for being here. I know sometimes it's just not having a subscription keeps you from saying hello, but Matt Boy, good to see you. Mag, excuse me. It'd be great to see you too. Thank you so much for being here and participating, and whoever you are, I look forward to finding out. Come out and have a meeting at the Moon Pavilion tomorrow, and let's find out what she finds out from the king. Busted you. Good. I'm glad to see you. So thank you so much for being here. I love you. Have a great, great afternoon. Be safe. Go hug somebody that you haven't hugged for a while, or maybe make a phone call and let them know that you're thinking of them. But until I see you again tomorrow, go on your own adventure. I love you. Now get out.